change the culture, the mindset, the expectation level, and improve the brand of Indiana Hoosier football.
Listen, sometimes when you play the game we play, you got to wear a little egg on your face, Brad. We're not looking for.
That's the nature of college ball, college sports.
That's how
you got to own it.
That's how it goes sometimes.
You got to own it.
You have to own it.
Yeah. I'm proud of this team. They showed a lot of fight. They were clearly outmatched, and it just shows that they just have a lot of work to do. The fact that they made it this far in their first year under Cignetti with the roster that they had is so impressive, and I'm even more convinced than I was before the game that Indiana will get to a point to where they can contend for a national title. Now, when will that happen? Probably not next year. Maybe not the year after that, but it will happen in the future as long as Cignetti's on campus, and I'm convinced of that moving forward. So now it's just all about building from here. Already got a head start, making a college football playoff appearance. It's all about just building up from here. That's what it's all about. Just trying to get better year after year after year.
100%. I think the thing that has been lost in the last couple of days, especially in the national discourse, and trust me, we're going to get to that in a second. We've got a lot of thoughts about it. We've probably been talking about it for 2 or 3 days. But the thing that's been lost is that this was such an impressive season that deserves to be celebrated for Indiana. And I don't care what anybody says, pundit, player, whatever. What those guys did in that room, coaches, players, staff, university, the fans who showed up and bought in, this entire season is like, this was incredible. We were talking about this right before we came on, but you were like, this was a first-year head coach in the Big Ten. I don't care what your schedule looks like, but every single person who had a voice picked this team to finish second to last or last in the league. And they made the college football playoff and had the entire world believing it was going to be a game.
Yeah, the only person before the season that didn't have a second to last was Phil Steele, who was being cheeky and was guaranteeing Indiana to a bowl game. He did pick them 12th in the conference and had them going bowling. That is nowhere near what they ended up doing. And he was being of the outlier of, hey, I think Indiana's going to have a good year. And there are a few others that were saying that, like, hey, watch out, they might go bowling. Making a college football playoff, regardless of the result in round one, a team that will be remembered in Indiana lore as the first Cignetti team, a team that will be remembered in a very good light by Indiana fans as the team that really built the foundation of what's to come in the future. And I'm expecting the future to be very, very bright. I don't expect this to be our last playoff appearance.
No. And whether it's good or bad, people are going to remember this Indiana team. And when you look back on the 2024 season, if it's not the first or second thing you say, it's definitely in the top 5. Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. Like, they were a part of the fabric of this college football season and launched our fan base to a position where we have to be taken seriously. The amount of people that came out of the woodwork to tell me I was an idiot this week on Twitter just tells me we're moving in the right direction. Because if they truly didn't care, nobody would take the time to try and put us down. But you see the machine start moving, the Indiana machine. And it's been some nasty work from the national media, the agenda and the way it's flipped against this team specifically. But I'm not going to let that take away from what happened here. These guys are legends on campus. Like you said, they laid the foundation for this team. They'll always be remembered as that first Cignetti team, the first guys who bought in, the ones who believed. They made us believe. And nobody can ever take that away from them. This team produced 3 All-Americans. They had multiple All-Conference guys and did it in the face of every single person they saw telling them they couldn't. That can never be taken away from them.
Exactly. Can never be taken away from them as much as, Kirk Street wants to. It's not going to work. This is a special group and the foundation, the building blocks of what's to come as Indiana ascends to a football power. I didn't stutter there. Football power. It's going to happen.
Listen, you can you can dislike Curt Cignetti all you want, and I'll continue to refer to White Boy Rick's 3 reasons why people don't like Curt Cignetti. 1, you don't love ball enough. 2, you just didn't understand the shape of Indiana's fan base and what we needed. And I don't even remember what 3 was. Oh yeah, 3 is he said something mean about your favorite team and it hurt your feelings. So I don't care that my coach offended you. If he did, good. It means we're doing something right. And the fact that everybody's so pissed off means they were taking it seriously. Notre Dame's in the locker room on Instagram Live after going, show this to Sig. Will Howard's on the sideline stomping out a cigarette. 13 million people watched Indiana play Notre Dame. And if ignorant people have the nerve to tell me this team doesn't matter, doesn't mean anything, beating them doesn't matter, give me a damn break. Give me a break. And it's going to be eye-opening when Notre Dame plays Georgia, and that's going to be a really good game. And it's going to, like, the farther away we get from this whole selection bullshit mess, the more fondly the general public's going to end up looking back on this Indiana team and being like, damn, they actually accomplished a whole hell of a lot.
When Ohio State faces Notre Dame in the national title game, and you look at 11-2 Indiana with losses to Ohio State and Notre Dame, this team's going to be viewed a little differently.
100%. 100%. But we do have a little bit of smoke. I would say a little bit of smoke. There's a lot of smoke. It's pretty smoky out there. But let's get to some positives first. Incoming 2025 wide receiver LeBron Bond, first team All-State wide receiver, kick returner, and punt returner. Shout out to LeBron Bond, and pumped to have him in the Hoosier offense. It's funny. You can, if you peek around at different analysts, you can see like everyone's got a different favorite guy coming into the receiver room, and he's got a lot of fans of his coming into this year. So it's like all these freshmen coming in, him, Davion Chandler, and Miles Kendrick, all these guys can produce early. So I'm super excited for this class. But shout out to LeBron Bond, first team All-State, 3 positions, Hoosier.
With 7 current scholarship Indiana receivers right now, all 3 freshmen coming in, including LeBron Bond, are looking to get snaps, especially LeBron Bond and Miles Kendrick. We currently don't have a starting slot receiver.
We don't have a traditional slot, but I think actually like a lot of what Surratt does really well and a lot of what Cooper does really well translates to the slot. So I'd be excited to see if we start moving guys around, especially if we're going to incorporate a healthy EJ Williams a little bit more on the outside, because that dude is really dynamic. And when he's on the field, he's a really, really good player. Super pumped to have him back. That's another move that's been flying under the radar for Hoosier fans, but that's a huge one. EJ Williams coming back. But yeah, we're kind of missing that like traditional slot, almost like a Julian Fleming,
like a Mikey Matthews from Cal, or like a Zachariah Branch from USC. That
Zachariah Branch is going to Georgia, dude.
We're doing our portal wish list later, and on my list, I'm just gonna steal it. It's slot receiver. We need a starting slot guy. I think the depth that the freshmen bring in is huge, with Bond and Kendrick coming in, and Chandler's going to mix in with the outside guys, EJ and Coop and Surratt, and then Charlie Becker's probably going to get some more tick. Bring in one more slot guy, you have another good 8-man receiver rotation.
100%. And then, real quickly, before we get into all the nasty stuff that was going on this week from the national media, Indiana alum Taylor Kniff donated $75,000 to the NIL fund. He's an Airbnb mogul, I guess. I don't know. He's doing big things. But shout out to Taylor. That's big time. $75K to the NIL fund. Indiana's not going anywhere.
Hopefully more follows suit. Everyone saw and to your point earlier about people taking Indiana legitimate, everyone saw the NIL that we were able to post up and how it's above Oregon.
Oh my God. Dude, I had the dumbest person respond to me today and be like, yeah, okay, Oregon spent $10 million on their roster, and I'm like, you're a moron who can't read. And they're like, you're an idiot who can't read. And I'm like, no, you actually can't read, because that isn't saying how much money that they spent on NIL. That's saying how much money that their collective has, and that's more towards like grassroots fundraising that has nothing to do with Phil Knight and Nike and all the back end NIL deals, which is like, people don't understand what NIL is. And I've read the bylaws. NIL is not payment directly from the university. That's going to be what this rev share is coming up. And there's some really interesting things happening. Mitt Winter, I believe is his name. He's a attorney online. I'll have to get the name of him. But he's been doing a lot of like NIL stuff leading up to this kind of like big boom, which is happening where they're going to rev share in the next couple months, and a lot of the money that these teams have to spend, they have to spend it. So he called it double dipping, and it's kind of hard for me to really explain exactly what's happening, but like that's how Duke was able to give Darian Mensah $8 million. It's because like it's still the wild wild west. But he was also saying that, or somebody was saying that the portal prices are going to come way down starting when this rev share starts. So it is super interesting. But yeah, there is a little bit of a disconnect I think people have between like what NIL is and then how teams are using it right now, because they're not many of them are doing it legally.
Yeah, it's the wild, wild west right now. We're still waiting on checks and balances to come through. The point is, Indiana is well suited to compete with the big dogs, and they will continue to do so, just like they have. We'll see. We'll trust. If there's one thing, I have my gripes with Cignetti, and we'll get to him later, but there's one thing he does really well, and that's roster building and development. Well, development at this level, development at this level remains to be seen, but roster building is definitely his biggest strength as a coach, and he's already in a very good position. Just need a few starter holes to fill in, but the depth behind the starting jobs right now are full of either guys that have been on the roster for a while or, the 38 freshmen that he's brought in the past two classes, none of which have transferred yet.
Well said. Do you want to have the Cignetti conversation now? Because I do think it kind of segues nicely into what I want to talk about next.
No, because it goes into kind of the Notre Dame game. And I kind of wanted to talk about that when we talk about the Notre Dame game.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, people are mad about Indiana, Brad. I don't know if you've seen, but I don't know what Kirk Herbstreit's problem is, and he did give a half-hearted apology and kind of buried the Indiana stuff on McAfee today, which, to be honest, I did kind of appreciate. Like, we shouldn't, like, this shouldn't be a running thing. His comments about the game after the game shouldn't be a running thing, but he said them, and he pretty much lit the Indiana fan base on fire, and he's hearing about it. He wasn't the only one, though. Cowherd said something ridiculous about Indiana's schedule and not deserving to be there. The entire SEC tried to make a gripe about their conference being the best. We all saw what happened at Tennessee. Ryan Russillo tried his best to get in on the engagement. I don't know what he was trying to do there, or what angle he was trying to take, or what corner of the internet he's hanging out on. But he does. I don't even want to talk about Russillo, but Herbstreit really is the one that was disappointing. You just expect better from that guy, being in the position he is and having the power that he does. His opinion holds weight, and when he goes on national television and absolutely buries Indiana, regardless of what his personal opinions are about Curt Cignetti, it not only hurts the program, it hurts the kids. It makes, and it's on top of everything, it just simply wasn't true.
Yeah.
Like, he said that Indiana got outclassed and didn't belong, and then doubled down on it, standing in front of the Ohio State-Tennessee score, where Tennessee looked like a high school team.
To single out an individual school after we saw 4 blowouts in the first round is pretty unprofessional from him. People can point the argument of, Indiana lost by 10. They didn't lose by 10. That was a 27-point loss, guys. Let's get used to it. 24-point loss, damn near. And
listen, regardless of the final score,
he shouldn't be singling out as a national pundit as he is with so much weight. He shouldn't be doing those things. Leave that to the Ryan Russillos and the Colin Cowherds of the world. You are Kirk Herbstreit. You call games. You cannot be showing this type of bias about a single school. Your own personal opinion about a school, because that's just not what you do. You are supposed to preview the games and then you call the games. Yes, you can give some good analysis about what happened in the game, but to single out a school that played yesterday when he was saying these things is completely unprofessional on his part. And he's losing a lot of credibility by doing it. And I think a lot of people are calling him out on it, and that's why he had to go on Pat McAfee to put out the fire a little bit.
Well, 100%. And to be honest, I don't even want to say anything else, because I feel like you just made a phenomenal point there. Like, his job is to be to not give his opinion. His job is to call the game how he sees it, and you're right, to single out Indiana to the point where it felt like it was an attack from the network. It really felt like the establishment is threatened by what Indiana's building here. Because if you think about it, there isn't that much room at the top. There's only 12 teams. You saw what happened. Like 3 SEC teams got in. You had Alabama left out. You had, like, think about the giant brands that didn't make it. That affects the bottom line. And when you start playing with people's money, they get threatened. And Indiana has the ability, whether the people want to believe it or not, Indiana has the ability to push into that upper echelon of football because of the alumni base and the money. They just needed somebody who had the ability to take them there. And I know people are going to say what they're going to say about Cignetti, but so far he's proven he's been the guy to elevate this program. So much so to the point where they were one of the best 12 teams in the country, and it doesn't look like they're taking a step back. So, to your point, to inject that level of opinion into it and to do it in a position where not only could Indiana not punch back, but it was a pile-on. It was completely unprofessional. It was uncalled for, and you're right. It's killing his credibility, and it was just flat out not true.
Yeah, let's say all 3 games on Saturday were really close, good games. Then maybe what he said is fine because they were the only team to get blown out in the first round. The fact of the matter is that didn't happen. Indiana actually had the smallest margin of loss of any of the 4 teams that lost in the first round. That's a fact. So to single them out and say they don't belong, well, not including SMU, Tennessee, and Clemson, who is an auto bid, so you can't really say that about Clemson. But to not single out SMU and Tennessee while making that statement is just not true. It just makes him seem like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
100%. And here's what it looks like. It looks like you have a bunch of people who have a hand in making money off the SEC, looking at Indiana and what Cignetti did, going, oh shit, if this guy goes any higher, like that's going to lock another one of us out. And it's how do we put this fire out as quickly as humanly possible? Discredit, 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 discredit. And it came from all angles. And guess what? It's going to continue to come. Somebody put out a phenomenal Fred Glass quote from a couple years ago where he said, there's people in powerful places that don't want Indiana football to be good. We're just a win on their schedule and they get to move on. They get to collect their paycheck from coming to our stadium and that's it. And if that changes, the bottom line for a lot of people changes. And that's real. And so it's not just a coincidence that 15 talking heads came out trying to bury Indiana and the general public went, wait a second, how come we all watched one thing and you're telling us what we watched wasn't what we saw? That's just straight up gaslighting.
Yeah, and adding on to that point, like how people are somewhat scared of Indiana. Any ball knower knows. If you follow college football, you know about the 1 to 2 year jump. That's the jump that you make after a first-year head coach, and then you have a full off-season, your first full, 100% full off-season, where you have everything in control, you have all your guys, and you're able to assemble a team for year 2, and you look at what happens. Exhibit A, Kenny Dillingham, this year, Arizona State, year 2. They were picked to finish second to last in the Big 12, and they came out and played Kenny Dillingham ball all the way to a first-round bye in the playoff. Teams are scared of that. Imagine what's going to happen to an 11-2 team that lost to Notre Dame and Ohio State going from year 1 to year 2.
With a lot of guys.
Yeah, I have a lot of doubts about this roster, but I'm not doubting Cignetti and his ability to roster build. You fill in those holes that we're going to talk about later in the portal, we'll be right back in the playoff next year. And that scares a lot of teams.
And it's funny, I was having this conversation earlier where I was like, it's not that. It was actually funny, and I didn't want to bring this tool shed up, but it was right after I saw the Russillo clip, and it's Indiana fans are not looking for sympathy. Indiana fans are looking for respect. They want people to acknowledge what happened on the field this season is real, and the reality of the situation is because of the way they performed against Ohio State and Notre Dame, for right or for wrong, they're not going to get that respect from the general public this year. Guess what? That sucks, but that's okay. It's going to mean that they're going to go into the offseason with a huge chip on their shoulder. People need to not mistake sympathy and respect, because what is happening to Indiana at a national level is straight up disrespectful. to their resume, to the way they played, to the way they blew out teams, to the character and quality of the kids on that team. Like it is straight up disrespectful to the guys in that room the way the national media has treated Indiana, and that's the only thing that the fans are fighting for is the respect that this team deserves.
100%. I don't think any Indiana fan was chirping. Like, obviously, we're rooting for our team to win a national title. Yes. And we were talking a lot of smack. And we lost. And we deserve all the, Notre Dame fans start chirping at us. Sure, SEC fans can get in on the fight too. That's all fun and games. But back to the respect thing. Like, it's not like we were trying to say we're here to overtake college football year one. That was never the idea of winning a national title with a year one head coach is basically impossible. Basically. The fact that they made it this far deserves respect, and they're just not getting it. And just because of a logo that they have, people are just assuming that this is a one-year fluke, and that's just not the case. And they're going to see it next year when another 10-win team from Cignetti comes around. They're on the playoff bubble again next year. It's been the same thing as last year.
And that team's going to be anchored by the heart and soul of the Hoosier defense because Aiden Fisher, all Big Ten, all American, all Hoosier, is coming back for his senior season.
Yeah, I expect most of the. I wasn't quite done with my rant. I didn't get to rant.
No, go ahead. Continue. I just got excited.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and they'll be back next year, and they got Fisher back. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I keep hearing a few things from the public that I need to address. The idea that I want better games in the playoff. I hear that a lot. First off, I don't think putting a 9-3 SEC team or even eliminating auto buys would have changed the fact that we had 4 blowouts in the first round. If we got rid of the auto buys, I'm not going to play the hypothetical game with the 9-3 teams because those teams lost to Kentucky, Oklahoma. I know they would get pummeled by Ohio State, Notre Dame, yada, 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 Penn State, name it. Eliminating the auto buys would have made up a matchup of, it would have been Notre Dame over Clemson. I'm calling a blowout there. At Notre Dame. I was there at that game. That was an electric atmosphere. Notre Dame's very good too. And then it would have been Arizona State versus, I'm going off the dome here. It would have been Arizona State going to Penn State. No. Ohio State. They would have gotten pummeled. Then it would have been SMU going to Tennessee.
That probably would have been a good game.
Maybe would have been a good game. I don't know. Like these blowouts, we're playing hypotheticals here, but like, and then Boise State has to go to Indiana. Like, are we
true.
guaranteeing
I totally forgot we were. No, wait, hold on, Brad. I completely forgot we were playing hypotheticals. Like that. This isn't even a question. Like Texas and Georgia. Tennessee auto wins.
Yeah, like
hypotheticals. What are we even talking about?
Tennessee's never lost a hypothetical game. They're blowing out SMU.
The SEC is undefeated in hypotheticals.
And this is why we didn't have a playoff in the first place. Because the difference between 1-6 and 7-25 is so astronomical that, this is why we've had blowouts in the CFP. Even the difference between 2 and 4, we get blowouts in the 4-team playoff.
What was Georgia Florida State last year? 5-6.
5-6, but it was transfer portal. It was the transfer portal game. Like I'm not even gonna count that one. But like that's why we had bowl games in the first place was to, have these even matchups, and then you have 1 and 2, who would have been Georgia and Oregon this year playing the national title game. And whoever wins that game is the national champion. And everyone else is playing a sick-ass bowl game. It's a shame that, all these people saying, oh, we want a 12-team playoff and we want better games. Like, that's just not going to happen. That's just not...
It contradicts each other.
Yeah, exactly.
It tells me people have never watched, like, the Division II championships, the FCS championships. Like, all those round 1 high-seed games are slaughters. Every single one of them.
Even down to the semis and the championship games. North Dakota State would pummel teams all the way to a national title. All the time. And that kind of goes into the aspect of, like, I mentioned, 7-25 is pretty the difference between 1-6 and 7-25 is pretty astronomical. Like going down from 10 to 25, it's pretty much a crapshoot, which is why it kind of goes into that discernment of like, yeah, best versus most deserving. Like at that point, like 10 through 25, like I don't know who the best team is. So at that point, you have to go most deserving. Like in what other sport are you putting in the best team over the most deserving team? I'll give you a hint. It's zero sports. Zero sports.
Literally,
Zero
it doesn't
sports.
happen.
It's not a real thing. So the idea of playing these hypotheticals.
What
like,
was the Herb Street quote?
Yes, Ole Miss, Bama, South Carolina, in theory, could beat Indiana on paper. We'll never know because they lost games that they shouldn't have lost to, and that knocked them out of the playoff. That's their fault. It would have been a much more difficult argument for SMU and Indiana if you have 10-2 Alabama there and 10-2 Ole Miss and 10-2 South Carolina. It would have been a much better discussion. This year is very, very clean cut for a 12-team. So the fact that there's this much argument over everything is ludicrous to me. Because it was the most clear-cut, field that we're probably ever going to have in a 12-team field. Probably. We'll see how things work out in the future. But yeah, most deserving basically also equals best at that point because 10 through 25 is basically the same team. And then your 1 through 6, which by the way, all got into the next round. So you got your wish. The 6 best teams in college football are still playing for a national title. So at the end of the day, the goal of the committee did their job. Because in theory, let's say one of those 6, I'm talking Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, and Georgia. Those are the 6 I'm alluding to. Let's say one of those teams lost in the first round. Then that team that beat them is now considered one of the best teams in college football because they won that big game. Oh, see how that works? See, now you put the most deserving team to get that shot at the top 6. And will they or will they not get it done? One day they're going to get it done. It's going to be absolutely electric. But this year just wasn't it. They lost in the first round. The top teams took care of business like they normally do and should do. Unlike, an Alabama, South Carolina, or a Ole Miss. They weren't able to do that this year against far inferior teams to Indiana, SMU, Clemson. Like, the idea that they think they have an argument for the playoff is just absolutely ludicrous. And that's why, they nailed the field. It's correct, and we're set up for a very good playoff. I do think they should get rid of auto buys. I think they should seed it by how they're ranked. I've said this before. I think that's the only change I would make. I think they nailed the field. They nailed, the first round games. Like I thought, I watched every single one. It's not going to change next year. I'm a college football fan. I know most of them are going to be blowouts. They were all blowouts. I'm going to watch anyways because I love college football. And if you don't think that way, then I don't know what to tell you. You're either biased or you don't actually like college football.
Yeah, we're learning a lot of people don't actually love ball. They just like to complain.
They just like to see the flashy matchups of Ole Miss, and even though Ole Miss isn't that good, they went 9-3. Like, they want to see Bama in the playoff. The only argument I would make is
listen. I got news for the. I was gonna say I got news for the people who want to see those flashy matchups of like the Bamas and the Ole Misses and the South Carolinas and the. It's called the SEC. Go fucking watch the regular season. You would have seen those teams weren't good enough.
Drops Mike. I love that. Yeah, that's the end of my rant because I kind of ranted.
I was about to say I'm glad you went back to that because I did kind of forget you wanted to do that, and that was, I believe that was necessary.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I feel like I said that very concisely and very like.
Yeah, I thought it was very well said. And you're right. This was the most obvious 12-team field, and also it would have been a hell of an argument if SMU was able to beat Clemson.
Yeah.
And then you don't have Clemson getting in, and then all of a sudden South Carolina or Bama or like one of those teams sneaks in.
Yeah. And that would be fun. I'd be so about that. Like, as a football, I'm like, oh.
Guess what? None of us would have fucking cared.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been all mad because, okay, based on how the field goes, yeah, a 3-loss SEC team gets in this year because the SEC is a very good conference. They're very deep this year. They only have 3 teams in the field right now. Big Ten has 4, so I don't know. I think all 3 of those teams have a better argument than Illinois, and yeah, they should be fighting for that last bid, but it just didn't open up for them this year. And I think they're just a little salty about it. Happens.
100%. But guess what? We don't care because Aiden Fisher's coming back, and we're going to be sick again next year.
Yeah, Aiden Fisher, number 4, team captain and All-American, is back. This basically sets up Indiana to return their 3 best players on defense each of their best player at each 3 levels. Kamara, Fisher, Pons.
Kamara is not confirmed yet, but we do have the Mikhail Kamara tweet notifications on.
I am anticipating every non-senior to return to this team. If not, it's a backup that is going to the portal. There's a few of those there that are older guys, might not start next year, probably should go. And Sig's gonna have conversations with all of his scholarship guys, gonna feel them out where they're at, what they're thinking, what he's gonna tell them what their forecast looks like for next year, what he's expecting of them. And yeah, we haven't heard too much noise coming of players leaving. We only had Taven, which was pretty writing on the wall for everyone that follows Indiana football. I would have liked to keep him for the depth, but go try to find your starting job. Go for it. Go to Ball 100%. State. Go to Ball State and ball out. Go do that. That's fine.
I love Taven Jackson, and I'm so glad that the style, I appreciate our fan base so much, Brad, because the style of tweet that was going around after Taven hit the portal, it was like every single person was saying, this guy didn't have to stay for the portal season. We saw multiple quarterbacks leave their team. This guy had every excuse to transfer after last season. He had more than enough excuses to be a problem this year, and he was a model teammate, awesome dude, literally won us our first appearance on College Game Day. You can't say enough good things about Taven Jackson, and the entire Hoosier fan base is behind this guy. Wherever he goes next, we want him to be successful, and we'll be rooting for him.
Whatever school gets him is getting a very good kid that they're going to really appreciate. And, yeah, he can play ball a little bit, too.
Yeah, the kid can play. But I do think the writing was on the wall, and I do think this is a good time to jump into the Notre Dame game because I don't want to go too far ahead, but with the way Rourke was playing, especially by the end of the third quarter, early fourth quarter, the fact that they didn't go to Taven in that situation that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from the Notre Dame game is that we're just not there yet. We're not there yet. We already said at the beginning of the show, we love this team, got tons of dogs in this team. Maybe not, depth-wise yet, but starting guys, very good players. Are we at the level in terms of roster to where we can, go on the road to Notre Dame and beat them? No, we're just not there yet. Year one, we're just not, and that's a tough pill to swallow because we love these guys and they really did set the groundwork of what's to come. But the reality is, and I think a lot of those guys know, is that the plan for Indiana is to backfill them with better players.
Well, listen.
And I think it seems a little harsh of me to just call them better because I'm not calling them not good. I'm just talking the elite, the NFL draft picks. Our plan is to have rosters with 10 NFL draft picks.
At the end of the day, Brad, this is a sport. We love the people, the human beings that were the players on this team. At the same time, it's more than fair that we have a very real conversation about where the program stands and what happened on the field on Friday night. And yes, the final score was only 10, but we all watched the game. Indiana got pushed around on offense. Notre Dame was playing press man the entire time. There was nowhere to go with the ball. Until Riley Mills suffered that season-ending injury, which is going to be that's a devastating injury for Notre Dame because that dude was by far the best player on the field when those 2 units were out there. But Indiana literally could do nothing on offense the entire game. Defensively, I thought they battled really well, but at the same time, they don't have an athlete like Jeremiah Love, and that was another huge difference in the game. But it's just if you looked at the way if you just took a still shot of the way the 2 defenses were playing pre-snap. It told you everything you needed to know. Notre Dame was not afraid of being beat over the top. Notre Dame was not afraid of being out-athleted. Notre Dame was not afraid of leaving. Like, they left an open box the entire game and dared Indiana to run the ball. And every time Rourke handed it off with a numbers advantage, they got stuffed. Like, the reality of the situation is that Notre Dame is just a level above Indiana. And while, yes, we talked a lot of shit going into the game because it's fun, and that's what you do when you're playing a game, when you see what happened and your eyes tell you something, like, to sit here and say, like, Indiana didn't get pushed around in that game would just destroy our credibility, like they did.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull a Kirk Herbstreit and just pull false narratives out of my ass. This is, yeah, it was an ass whoop, is what it was. And we showed a lot of fight making it a game. There's a point there where I was sitting there and it's like we scored that second touchdown, and I'm like, if we get this 2-point conversion and Radjic gets another, like, by the way, Notre Dame Stadium is dead silent at this point. You could hear a pin drop. And I'm just thinking,
yeah, Indiana got an onside kick in this game. Nobody's even talking about that. That was an insane onside kick from Radjic. And then the second one, you could argue, was even better.
They almost got the second one, too. So if they just converted on that 2-point conversion, all of a sudden you're looking at what could have been
a one-score game.
One of the craziest comebacks in sports history. But, like, at the level of, like, Red Sox coming back down 3-0 to the Yankees in the ALCS, 2-0-4 ALCS. Like, that, it'd be that level of comeback. Because those first 57 minutes, Indiana was just not at the same level. And that's a lot of what prompted Kirk to say those things, sure. But that was also SMU. That was also Clemson. Like, Tennessee's far away too. Like, Tennessee's not close.
I think people were mistaken too, and the problem with the discourse after the game was not the fact that Indiana thought their team played really well and they were in it and that they just got unlucky. The problem became that everyone immediately tried to discredit the season, the coach, the players, and everything that had happened in the last 3 months because they got outplayed by a better team on the road.
Which happened to everyone else.
Which happened to every other team that played. And when you take the crown jewel of the weekend, Ohio State and Tennessee, and I fucking hate doing this, comparing two teams that lost that played the same opponent. But just, like, Ohio State reached 35 points on Indiana by faking a knee on the goal line and diving in the end zone, and then their quarterback ran off the field and stuffed a cigarette on the ground.
Yeah, if there's one thing...
Like, this was a much different... Ohio State's 3s and 4s were on the field with 12 minutes to go in the game. Like, I think it was Buffed in Prime T-Cal that tweeted this. And side note here, and one of my favorite parts about this season was learning about that whole, like, Buffed in Prime and the way they go over film and how they break down the unheralded guys. And that's, if you haven't seen the Buffed in Prime YouTube channel, go check those guys out. They do awesome work over there. But he was like, Ohio State's got early enrollees on the field right now. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, it was insane. Like, to make believe that Indiana wasn't a competitive football team is crazy, especially with the way the defense played, especially in the second half. And even, again, I hate doing this one too, take away the one explosive play and look, they didn't do anything. But no, I'm saying leave that play in there and look at the rest of the game. Like, Indiana was really stout against the run, and they forced Riley Leonard to make a bunch of throws. And guess what? Riley Leonard was better than we both thought he was going to be. And
it's very apparent that our defense is very good. And they're like, if there's a part of our team that's, like, close to where it needs to be, it's our defense. Where we're lacking is on the offensive side of the ball. O-line getting pushed around. They played great all year in a Big Ten schedule. When it comes up to the elite D-line in the country, they're not even close. And
it does hurt that they lost Evans.
And Rourke's inability to improvise was getting, exposed because he didn't have it. When Rourke doesn't have his first 2 or 3 reads, he's pretty ineffective throughout the whole year. And that's why I was never...
Well, I'm going to be honest, Brad.
I was never bullish on his first round grade.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's more than fair. Listen, I'll full blown put my hand up and say I got a little ahead of myself there. And, like, I love Curtis Rourke, but he was, like, he didn't have a good game. And I think he'd be the first person to tell you that. And I don't know if you saw the picture of his thumb today on Twitter. He posted his thank you to Hoosier Nation. But, holy shit, that thing looked grotesque.
I don't think he was 100%.
The fact that he was just playing through that, there's no way he was 100%. It was like you're looking at the way he throws the ball and you're like, why is everything high? And it's like, oh, he can't grip the ball.
He doesn't have a thumbnail. He doesn't have one.
And it's like, that almost kind of reminds me of when Tuttle destroyed his shoulder at halftime of the Outback Bowl, and they just rolled him out there for the second half because Dexter Williams didn't know the playbook.
I love that story so much. Yeah, but it does come back to the point, like, why didn't we put in Taven?
Exactly. So that was kind of
I think
what
there's
I was
also something to be
before,
said about,
like,
like, you gotta let Rourke finish this out. You gotta let Rourke
No,
finish it. He got us there.
I think
he got us there.
If you have any belief, and this isn't, I want to be careful saying this because it's going to sound like I'm putting Taven Jackson down, and I'm not. But if you're the coaching staff and you have any belief that he's your starting quarterback next year, he comes into that game to provide a spark. But if you don't think he's your guy, then you roll with the guy who's not playing well and hope he figures it out. Because at that point in the game, there was nothing that Indiana's offense was showing you that showed they could get a first down, let alone score a touchdown. And I think, and I'm going to get jumped on for this point too, and I know, first of all, and let's have the Cignetti conversation right now, because somebody's pregame comments should not dictate the way they coach a football game. The persona you put out and the way you talk to your fan base and the opposing fans and the way you actually strategically manage a football game should not match up. So all the people out there who were so pissed off that Sig talked all that shit and then punted on 4th and 10 in his own zone when his offense hadn't done a single thing in an hour and a half, like, I'm sorry, but that was the right football play. And guess what? Even though Notre Dame came down the field and scored, that ended up sparking Indiana's offense, and they started to, quote-unquote, get going after that. Like, what do people think? That they were just going to, like, okay, 4th and 10 from our own 30, and we're getting ran out of this game. Like, you know what, let's just pull out the 4th and 10 play we've been sitting on all day and magically get this first down. It's like, if you think Indiana could have gained 10 yards, they would have done it? Like, what kind of... It's asinine. So to be like, oh, he talked shit and then he punted, like, yeah, sorry, it was the right decision. And no, it wasn't aggressive. But guess what? They weren't winning the football game if they gave up on 4th down there anyway. So, like, to me, that's just, you're looking for a reason to dislike the guy. You're looking for a reason to jump on him because you don't like his attitude, and that's fine. But in terms of it being the wrong coaching decision, like, you just weren't watching the game, because Indiana's defensive unit was outplaying the offense by far, and it was the only positive in the game, and it was the only reason we even stuck around, and that didn't become a blowout. Because guess what? If Notre Dame could have put up 45 goddamn points like Ohio State did, and had that narrative coming out of this game, guess what? They would have.
I liked your point. I'm glad you brought this up, because I am one of those Curt Cignetti critics about how he handled this game. Punting on 4th down 17, with 10 minutes left in the game, you're on the opponent's 40-yard line. All year, Curt Cignetti has been very aggressive. Fake punts up 30, going for it on 4th down.
Yeah, but it's not. But they're not dumb decisions, though. They're aggressive decisions, but they're smart aggressive decisions. They're not just aggressive decisions to make them.
Understood. And I think that's a very valid point, and I almost feel like I'm losing this argument. But I would have gone for it. You gotta show some fight.
No, listen,
you gotta show some fight. You got them punting was clear to me that even the coaching staff knew that they were outmatched, out talented, all across the board, and that's why they could. And to your point, that's why they couldn't go for it.
Wait.
4th and 10.
Would you feel differently if the coaching staff was like, no, we actually were like, we should have won that game? Like, if they were just like completely delusional and we're like, nope, our guys, their guys, let's line up and play man the whole game. Like, what do you? Like, that's crazy. Like, anybody who loves football and watches and consumes and takes in as much football as these guys do, understood what they were up against. Like, that's why. And I know people are, and I know you're upset about Cignetti going on game day, and I thought Shane Gillis's joke about it was hilarious, and the fact is, like, Sig was on here on game day, like, what are we even talking about, Irish? But, like, guess where everybody's anger and attention and all of that negativity is going towards after this game? It's going towards Curt Cignetti. Guess where it's not going? Curtis Rourke.
Justice Ellison. James
Yeah,
Carpenter.
like the guys, the people who didn't play well, like the defender. I don't even remember who was playing outside corner when Jeremiah Love went nuts, but everybody
Sharp.
said that was one guy who lost contain. Like nobody's even like. I haven't even heard Sharp's name be brought up, and I don't want to bring it up. That's not my point. My point is what Cignetti did, and knowing, me saying this is not saying Cignetti didn't believe in his team's ability to win, but I promise you he knew he was up against a talent gap. Like, he's not a moron. He watches more football than we do. I promise
he's a
he knew who he
master
was
roster
playing.
builder. He knows he's one of the best talent evaluators at the college level right now.
That his move to go on game day was calculated. I promise that. It wasn't it was like a me thing, but it was for a reason. And I believe the reason was he knew they were going to get run out of the building, and he didn't want the negativity to go on his team. He wanted it to go on him.
Yeah, those are very good points, and I completely agree with how, your rebuttals to both. I wish we would have set it up a little bit better, like on the pod. Like I make the points that a lot of people are making, including myself, and then you made the even better points of basically Curt Cignetti's not an idiot, and it was all calculated. I do think I disagree with punting there in opponent's territory as just if I was coaching the game. Just that's what I would have done. But
as a
but
fan,
I can see as a fan, I was also pissed that he went on game day not in the locker room. I do think you make a very good point that might have been calculated to put all the pressure on him. So like whenever he wins, it's all about the players, and whenever he loses, it's all about him. That's what it should be about. And that's a good coach. And I hope that's the message, and I hope that, because I feel like a lot of this rah stuff makes it seem like he's a me guy. And I hope that's the message he's giving to players, that I'm going to put all the attention on me. So when you guys can just go out and ball out like you normally do.
Here's what tells me I'm on the right track here. It's exactly the point you made earlier. He's brought in how many freshmen to this team across 2 classes? Nobody's left. How many guys were leaving? You listen to the way his team talks about him. His coaches have all been with him for 10 years. Like, you don't hang around a guy who just sells you out.
Yeah. And if you don't like, and I think you made this point to me, like when we were talking about after the game, because we've been trying to record this podcast for a little bit now. But a really good point you made is that, I just blanked on it. I'm so pissed right now.
Talking about Sig in the game?
No, it was like, fuck.
It'll come back to you.
It won't. I had it. So pissed.
Do you remember what it was along the lines of?
Well, what were we just talking about?
We're talking about Cignetti taking the pressure off his team and putting it on himself, so when they lose, people get mad at him, but when they win, he can put it on his team. And then you look at the guys who are coming in, nobody's leaving his team. You look at his coaches, nobody's leaving. Like, I don't know. It's the only people who dislike him are the people who he's trying to upset.
Yeah. That's not coming back to me. Fuck.
But yeah, that's not. I don't want I had a problem with the game day thing though. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like I was thrilled to see him on game day, especially after the performance they put up. But at the same time, like, that's kind of his MO. That's his persona. He is building a brand here, and he is part of that brand. And guess what? The Indiana fans fucking loved it, and that's all that matters.
Here's the point I was going to make. If a recruit sees Cignetti being a rah-rah guy on television, doing the character bit, they're probably not going to like him in practice anyways. So it's probably for the best.
Yeah, if you see this and it turns you off immediately, you're not the type of guy who's going to be brought in here anyway. like not it's recruiting is a two-way street. Like you got to want to be here and like we got to want you, but it's like we're looking for a specific type of person. Like there are kids out there that got fired up about Indiana. There are kids out there that we're talking to that are hearing, look at how close we were, and we think you are going to be somebody who helps take us over the edge. Like we talked about this before the pod, but and we were talking about Fernando Mendoza. But if you're Fernando Mendoza and like you go to Georgia, right? You're just the next great Georgia quarterback, right? But if you go to Indiana,
you're
a legend.
Top 5 Indiana quarterback all time as soon as he steps on campus.
You're a legend before you even take a snap. You have the chance to like create a whole new legacy for a fan base and establish a tradition. And like if you're somebody who's chasing something like glory, this is the spot.
Yeah, I don't want to name comparisons, but I like going back to... So I like comparing this rebuild to the Saban rebuild. They go 6-6 year one. They already have Greg McElroy on the staff. You could be the A.J. McCarron of this team. You could be the Blake Sims, and then later 7 years down the line, they get Tua, they get Jalen Hurts, they get Mac Jones. Like you could be the facilitator. You could be the A.J. McCarron, the Greg McElroy that transcends Indiana into the world where they're able to get the Tuas and the Jalen Hurtses and the Mac Joneses to go play quarterback at your school. And that's the reason why Greg McElroy is on ESPN right now. I think that's important. Like he's a legend. He's a fucking legend. He brought Bama back.
So to put a bow on Indiana Notre Dame, first of all, shout out to the crowd. There were, I don't know what, actually you were there. Tell me about South Bend.
South Bend it's a college football holy land. You feel it. The tailgate field's packed. Packed, dude. Nowhere to move. It's insane. It's in a parking lot. It's electric. Never seen anything like it. Like, I've been to USC tailgates, UCLA tailgates, Indiana tailgates. I could probably do a lot more traveling in college football for how much I love it. I plan on going to more road games. Thinking about going to Eugene next year. You can just feel it as soon as like I talked all this smack going to the game. I felt it in the tailgating fields. And all the buzz. And Notre Dame is life there. It is a different level, and it's only going to get better with time at Indiana. It's a great first year for our fan base, but we have work to do on our end. And you felt it going into the stadium. It's only 77,000. Bowl, not as big as the Rose Bowl. Like I've seen the Rose Bowl packed for UCLA games. There was a good amount of red there, but man, dude, it was not an Indiana takeover by any means. I would say 5-10% Hoosier fans. That might be a little... I couldn't really see my side,
100%.
but...
And I think I do believe a lot of Hoosier fans are going to feel this way. Maybe not the ones who immediately are going to battle those, like the reverse jacket crowd that's going to get frustrated, but if you're not playing against Notre Dame, like if we're not... Like, I'll use Riley Leonard as a perfect example. Like, trying to figure out ways to root against him is really hard. Like, he's a really good kid, like, does really good stuff, has a positive attitude, great teammate. Like, it's hard to root against that guy. Like, Notre Dame's got a lot of kids like that. And then when you look at Notre Dame, the brand, like, that's a football team, like, you went over the history.
I understood. I understood firsthand about what Notre Dame football is. And it is...
Yeah, like, there's... Like, we have to remember, for as awesome as this football season is, like, this is, like... I made the joke a couple times, but like it really is a completely new era here. Like this is before times were BC. We're in AD times. Like this is year one. The level of tradition and the history that a school like Notre Dame has
extends.
It's like
100 years.
Extends a century. Like we're centuries behind. So you on the football field you can catch up, but like truth of the matter is like. Tradition and history wise, like you can never get there unless Notre Dame just stops playing football.
That's real. And yeah, the environment was insane. The stadium's really cool. They have great atmosphere. They get the people going. They do the push-ups whenever Notre Dame scores a touchdown. They're doing it all around me and Wiley. It was pretty crazy. And yeah, it was pretty unique to see something like that. And yeah, I'm cheering for Notre Dame to go all the way this year. I think it'd be really cool, especially with the whole Brian
Well, yeah.
Kelly thing going on.
100%. Yeah, that's Freeman won a playoff game before him. But yeah, it's and I know Notre Dame's gonna have the whole like fuck Indiana thing and like F Curt Cignetti and all
I
that
was getting
stuff.
a lot of
It's
go
like, yeah,
Hoosiers
we don't.
from the
We
Notre
don't-
Dame crowd. They're all reverse
Yeah,
jackets.
it's like
They
yes.
yeah. We got Chattanooga tomorrow from Notre Dame tailgate as I was just passing by. Like, dear God, that Chattanooga game was awful too. It's like that was a tough double whammy to watch that.
But no,
game
it's like
But
I don't have any gripes with Notre Dame. Like they were on the schedule, so they were
we were bashing.
They were on the board for this
Gotta
week,
bash
and they're
them.
off the schedule. So
Yeah.
what are we supposed to do? We're playing you in a football
Yeah,
game.
if we had better talent, it would have been a great matchup for us. But we're just not there yet. And
That's why I cannot wait for 2030. I have receipts.
I cannot wait for 2030. Cannot wait. That's what I was saying as I was leaving. Like we were exiting the stadium. I was, embraces me. He knows we're both upset. Parlay pundit. I just exposed him for who he is.
I'll beep it.
Yeah, we gotta beat that. Yeah, parlay pundit. We're both feeling it after the game, and I think it was pretty unspoken. I was just like, yeah, well, we're gonna be here. We're gonna be at this level. It wasn't this year, but we're gonna get here, and that's what I was saying. People were chirping. I was just like, wait till we get our 4 and 5 stars coming in. Just wait. Just wait. Just give us a few years. Give us a few years, and like we've had this discussion before. Like, how long is it gonna take for us to get there? You're thinking 2 to 3. I'm thinking more 4 to 5. I'm being a little realistic here. It could take even longer. Does that mean we won't be going to the playoff for another 4 or 5 years? No. I'm talking going to the semifinal. That's like once you make it to the semifinal, you make it to the Final Four in college football, you made it. Like from there, it's just obviously you want to win the national title, and that is the ultimate goal. But you get to the Final Four, all of a sudden you're clicking on all cylinders. You're a football powerhouse at that point, and we'll get there one day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people want to take the opportunity to dunk on Indiana and be like, yeah,
As they
this was
should.
cool, have fun, flash in the pan, and we'll never see you again. And yeah, cool, have your fun now. And there really isn't anything Hoosier fans can say back to that, because the only thing that can prove who's going to be right or wrong is time.
Is next year. Will we be 6-6, or are we going to go 9-3, 10-2 again? 11.
A lot of that's going to depend on the portal, which we'll get to in a little bit. But there were a couple other college football games this weekend. You wouldn't have known that based on the national media discourse, but 3 other first round games happened, and they were all blowouts.
Yeah, for the first time ever, the CFP expanded to 12 teams. But first, you can get your own piece of that history from NxckSkrxll. That's how do you spell it? NIKCO. NxckSkrxll. For $119.95, get your limited edition football of only 5,000, featuring your Indiana Hoosiers to commemorate our first of many college football playoff appearances. That features every school with a shot to win the title this year. All 12 teams. Each ball is fully licensed by the NCAA and member schools and embossed for the highest quality to add to your collection. Use the code CIGS at checkout for $10 off your purchase. That's CIGS, C-I-G-S. To order or learn more, call 1-800-345-2868. That's 1-800-345-2868. Or visit NxckSkrxll.com. That's NIKCO sports.com. Your code for discount is CIGS, 10% off.
Shout out to NxckSkrxll.
I hate that ad read.
I know everybody. Why?
It's just so long.
Yeah.
But it's a cool football.
No,
they sent me one.
No, the football is awesome.
They sent me one. It's really nice. I have it in my office. a nice piece. Need to find a stand for it though, which is the thing. But yeah, it's a nice piece of decoration.
Yeah, but no matter what anybody in the media says, they can never take what's on that football away from us. So grab yours today, NxckSkrxll.com.
Yeah, so let's go down the slate. We had opening game of Saturday was SMU at Penn State, and we had differing opinions here. I thought SMU would have a chance to make some noise offensively. I did not think they'd be able to stop Penn State by any means on offense. Boy, was I wrong. It was kind of the reverse.
This is the Tom Allen
Jennings,
special.
who is still a contender for me to throw some money on for Heisman next year. So he's going to make a jump. He's going to get better. Throws 2 pick sixes right off the bat. They're down 14-0. It's an actual nightmare for SMU. It's I thought a 98-yard TD run for the first score of the game was a nightmare. No. Two pick sixes in the first quarter is a nightmare, and it's very hard to come back from. I thought it would be back and forth. SMU would be able to get something going on offense. Never happened. Penn State wins the first ever playoff game without a passing touchdown. They didn't even need Drew Aller in that game, and they won.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, Brad. I nailed this one.
Mm-hmm. You did.
And I especially nailed that crowd was raucous, and I obviously wasn't at any of the games, so like I wouldn't be the best person, but at least on TV, it felt like that was the most like the craziest atmosphere to play in. Like that crowd was menacing. It felt like there was a wall of noise in front of Jennings the entire game.
Yeah, I could see why he threw those. You saw those pick sixes. They were bad. They were bad throws.
Yeah, they weren't good.
And he was rattled. And yeah, just a learning experience for a team that's in a similar situation than us. I think we're ahead of schedule than SMU is right now, given that's our year one and Rhett Lashley's been there a couple years now. They're coming. Dallas money. SMU has the money. They're a small school, but a lot of money. They're going to stick around. But yeah, another team's just kind of building, waiting to get there. They'll be back in the playoff one day. Will they be back next year? Maybe with Jennings. Go back and win the ACC again, or win the ACC for the first time. We'll see. But that's another team that's building on the come up. Yeah, Penn State, like I said, in that top 6 field of the clear top 6, it showed. It fucking showed. That big gap between 6 and the top 6 and the next 6, it's very big.
Yeah, Penn State was just much better than them in all areas of the game, and then on top of that, they were at home.
Yeah, the home game's fun.
Hindsight,
which is why they do need to kind of reseed it so that Penn State would have had a bye if they seeded according to the rankings. So they wouldn't have even gotten that home game. They would have just had a bye. They probably would have gotten, I don't know, the Fiesta Bowl or something like that.
there really isn't
SMU
not much to say about this game.
They turned the Mustangs into glue. Horses to glue was that game, and they that was a glue factory, and it was just nothing they could do about it. Shout out Tom Allen.
Yeah, Tom Allen masterclass for the Penn State defense. They were disgusting.
Next game, Clemson went to Texas and showed a little bit of fight. Couldn't really stop them on offense. Final was 38-24. Yeah, Klubnik, man, that dude can play. Holy smokes, man, was he willing them into that game, keeping them around.
Yeah,
See, that's the difference. Like Indiana has a guy like that against Notre Dame with that defense that we already have. Who knows what we could do in South Bend?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway from that game, obviously, besides Texas as a team just being really damn good, was how good Klubnik was. Like that's just like you're 100% right. Like having an absolute dude, a game changer, a top 12 guy at the position, like, yeah, it gives you the opportunity to hang around in these games you had no business hanging around in. The fact that that was a one-score game in the fourth quarter was crazy.
Yeah, insane. A lot of these, all three of these games have the same theme. It's like the top six versus the next six, and what that gap looks like right now, at least this year. And yeah, I don't know if South Carolina going to State College would have solved anything in this one. Or Texas also would have had a bye. Let's say they got to face Bama again. I don't think Bama has a shot. South Carolina doesn't have a shot. Ole Miss doesn't have a shot. It's yeah, Texas is very good. We knew this all year. They are of the six, one of the teams that hasn't played anyone. Texas Clemson's probably the best win all year, but they won by 2 touchdowns at home. That's a solid win. And they got Arizona State next week, or on New Year's Day.
Yeah, it's if you're gonna look at one of the games that would have strengthened the Herb Street argument, it was that one because Clemson, everybody's like, yep, that's the least deserving team, 100%, but they're also probably recruiting wise and star wise and NFL talent wise, the team that stacks up as well as those like upper echelon teams that we've talked about. That's a lot of the, like, it was a little frustrating that nobody, especially Herb Street, would have just come out and said, like, just take the NFL rosters and put them in because that's what people want to see. Like, if you want to see an NFL combine-esque, like, type of thing, again, go watch the SEC regular season. That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, this is the college football playoff. We have to
This is
decide
college
a winner.
football playoff.
In order to do that, you have to have Clemson and SMU and Indiana play because they had fantastic years. Clemson, obviously, they won the ACC. And then, put in the other two 10-win teams in the field. It's really that simple. It really is. And it's so frustrating that people say that. But then we go to the game to where I nailed it. I nailed it right on the head. I wish we clipped it, put it on Twitter. I said that Ohio State was going to boat race Tennessee. And boy, was I right. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
boat race. Didn't have a shot. Didn't even show up. Indiana at least scored on their first possession against Ohio State in Columbus. Tennessee scored toward the end of the first half, touchdown.
Yeah, poor Nico. He like early in the game on their first drive, I think cracked his helmet or something. That was kind of a precursor for what was to come. He was just getting his ass kicked all game. That for as much talking as the SEC did in the 12 hours or 24 hours between the Indiana game and the Ohio State game, it got dead quiet because, yeah, Ohio State took them to the woodshed. There could have been 100,000 Tennessee fans there. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, but they're still undefeated in hypothetical games. So maybe they should replace Boise State in the next round because they haven't lost.
Should they just move on?
Yeah, they haven't lost.
Oh, they should move. You're right. They Kirk Herbstreit likes their left end, so they should actually get into the national championship.
But yeah, it was a total ass whooping against, like I said, the top six against the next six. Big gap. Tennessee's far away from where they need to be in order to win a national title. Same with Indiana, same with SMU. Same with Clemson. Clemson's starting to add transfers now because they know that there's a gap.
Like, if you're going to power rank the teams that lost, like, Clemson got the closest. Indiana, while it wasn't that realistic, threatened a little bit. SMU and Tennessee just didn't belong.
They just rolled over.
And that is what should, like, that is what the weekend of football showed us. And that just wasn't the narrative coming out of the weekend, which is why it wasn't just Indiana fans that were going after Herb Street and the detractors, but it was pretty much anyone in college football that wasn't associated with the fan base that got left out.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad a lot of other fan bases had our back when that bullshit came out. I do appreciate that.
And Joel Klatt deserves a shout out as well.
Yeah, he's on our side. Like, these things happen. They get blown out. There's a big gap, in terms of quality of teams and when it comes to the top.
I thought Josh Pate made a great point about the college football playoff committee not being a production and it being like a competition committee, and that if the goal was to put on the best production, like I don't think logical people would sit there and like, yeah, SMU is definitely going to give the best game to Penn State, but that's not what the point was.
Sports competition.
The point
The
is
sanctity of sport. We've said this before.
We literally played an entire regular season, had thousands of people come together and rank these teams, and everyone came up with a list pretty much similar to that. And guess what? Every single list had Indiana in. So can we fucking stop?
It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Are we going to preview the next games, or is that going to be a later pod? I think it's time for Portal Wish List.
It is time for Portal
It's Christmas time.
List.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah, the only...
Season of giving.
I was going to say the only thing...
We're talking at the same time.
Let me transition here. I was going to say the only thing that's the most important next step that's going to help continue to change the way people view Indiana is this portal cycle, and it's a huge one. So go ahead.
Yeah, I have my list here. We're not on camera, but I have a paper that has basically every scholarship player. It's on one sheet of paper. Every scholarship player that we have, depth chart, and then on the side I have my little college football wish list. Or transfer portal wish list. Christmas transfer portal list. Transfer portal Christmas list. Transfer portal Christmas list. That's the one. That's what I have here.
Yeah.
First on the list.
I have a transfer portal Christmas list too, Brad. Mine has one name on it.
Yeah, and I think it's the first name that I have on here. And that's quarterback. We need two of them. We need Fernando Mendoza is the name that I wrote down. Looks pretty likely. Would really appreciate a commitment in the next couple days because that would really get the balls rolling on other recruitments. Obviously, you get a quarterback. Players want to go play for that team that has a quarterback. It's very self-explanatory. But yeah, I think top of the list
Makes sense.
is finding a starter quarterback. There's not too many left right now. There's not. It's really Mendoza with Reveal off the market. It really comes down to us getting Fernando Mendoza, or else we're in a real tough pickle. We're gonna have to wait for a guy to come out of the portal. We might have to pay Quinn Ewers $4.5 million. It might get to that point.
The way the Mendoza, I guess, recruitment has, I don't know, it hasn't been explained to me, but I guess from what I've gathered from different parts of the internet, he's pretty, like, he likes Indiana, but I've also heard that if Georgia makes a late push, it would be tough. So we're seeing that late push from Georgia right now. ESPN tweeted something like Sig versus Kirby for all the marbles. So we'll see. Like, this is a huge test, and like that's kind of what inspired what I said before about going to Georgia versus going to Indiana. But this, like, Curt Cignetti, Kirby Smart, head-to-head for a transfer quarterback. Like, let's see.
Yeah, Mendoza would bring that element that Rourke doesn't have, which is the escapability, the improvisation, the mobile aspect that he brings as a quarterback. Is he as good of a thrower, like, in his reads as Curtis Rourke? Probably not. But he's good enough, he's close enough to where he's probably a better prospect than Rourke because he has that mobility, the improvisation, 98 yards with my boys mentality that I would love to have on this team. I think he'd be a great fit for what we're trying to build here. And it really does. He's got to be circled on this list at this point because he is number one. If I want anything for Christmas, it's Fernando Mendoza.
100%. Like I said, he's literally the only thing on my list. Once that domino falls, like, it's not going to be tough to get a receiver to come play for him. Like, Mikey Matthews is, I believe he plays in the slot. I'm not.
He's a slot guy
with this game.
Cal.
A slot guy from Cal. Like, obviously played with Mendoza last year. Like, that would be a guy we could look at to bring in along with Mendoza. But everything starts and stops with the quarterback. And if we don't have a quarterback, then it's again,
looking really testy for us next year.
We're both big fans of Tyler Cherry and Fernando's younger brother, Alberto Mendoza. They're both freshmen, going to be sophomores going into next year. But you can't just go into a season with 2 true sophomores as the only 2 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. That's just you just can't do
Which
that.
is why we're also going to need to bring in a backup. And I have some names circled that I think might be a little, what do you want to call them? Like, might be getting ahead of myself here. Maybe it's not realistic. I'm circling, we talk about production over potential. With that number 2 spot, in theory, if we get Mendoza, QB2 spot, it makes sense to go after a guy that is looking to develop, might be looking for playing time, but also mostly looking just to develop and find a good program and just have a role. Malachi Nelson is out there. He's a former 5-star, former number 1 quarterback in his class. Was USC, then went to Boise State trying to get the starting job, lost the job. Now he's taking official visits to UTEP. I think that's worth a phone call for the QB2. Like, hey, come here, develop, and maybe you can have the starting job next year. Maybe. You got to earn it.
I mean, I hear you in terms of like throwing darts, but also that just like flies in the face of everything that has ever come out of Curt Cignetti's mouth and anything the staff has ever told us about the way they evaluate players. It's production over potential. We got to see something on the field from him, which is why it was a little. Not that Pribula didn't play this year; he was worked into the offense a little bit, but it's not like Pribula was taking first team snaps all year. Like asked to be a quarterback 1.
He has tape.
He had tape, but it wasn't. He wasn't like a established starter.
Yeah.
Mendoza is exactly the type of guy they look for, but he's also exactly the type of guy a lot of teams look
like
for.
Georgia.
He's really
He's also the type of guy Georgia looks for.
Yeah, a guy who's really good at playing quarterback.
Pause. We're in a recruiting battle with Georgia right now.
A serious
By the way,
but no,
just for people that don't realize where we're at
being...
in year 2. We're not even at year 2 yet. We're in the off season of year 1. And we're in a recruiting battle with Georgia for the top transfer quarterback in the portal. Just let that sink in for a little bit. Just let it sink in. Let it digest. Whether or not we win that battle or not, which we kind of need to win that battle. Because Georgia, they don't get them. They're going Gunner Stockton next year. Like, they'll be fine. Or, I don't even know.
Well,
I was talking about how Carson Beck shouldn't even be going in the first place. Dude had reconstructive shoulder surgery on his throwing arm today. It is December 23rd, 2024. He just had reconstructive. I don't know if it's reconstructive. He had shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder today. And if I'm an NFL GM, I'm not taking him round 1. His whole thing was about his arm. Now his arm just got repaired. Probably not even to see him throw in the NFL draft process. Fernando Mendoza should go to Indiana on the fact that Carson Beck isn't necessarily gone. And they have Gunner Stockton there. Another 5-star quarterback. 4-star, whatever. I like our chances here. We need to get him. Obviously, when Georgia comes knocking, you're going to answer the call. I like our chances here. I think Carson Beck comes back. It just doesn't make sense to me for him to go. If I was in his inner circle, I'd be telling him to go back because he didn't have the best tape this year. He threw a lot of bad picks, and that got the decision-making red flags for him. And now he's repairing his arm, which was the whole thing about him. And you're watching Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers eat in the NFL right now. Is he a Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey merchant? Who knows? He might be. So that's what I'm thinking as a talent evaluator. I'm sure other NFL people are thinking the same thing. I'd recommend him to stay for another year and just have Fernando Mendoza come to Indiana. Those are 2 separate things. Whether or not Fernando Mendoza was going after Indiana or Alabama or whatever, I'd be telling Carson Beck he should be staying. He should. He should stay in college 1 more year. 98 yards with my boys to Indiana and Bloomington. Back to the QB2 though thing. I have another name. I have another name for QB2. Devin Brown, number 33 quarterback at Ohio State. I think that would be awesome if we had a number 33
I would
quarterback as our backup. That'd be so fun.
because I've listened to a couple Ohio State podcasts. I know how their fan base feels about Devin Brown. They fucking love that guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he would ever come to Indiana, but yeah, I mean to leave Ohio State to go to Indiana to be the backup, especially with the way that kid is full blown like Ohio State till he dies, like that's a pipe dream. But no, as in terms of a competitor and a guy you'd love to have in the room, like fuck yeah, I'd love to have Devin Brown in this quarterback room. That'd be awesome.
We need a QB2.
He'd compete for the starting job for sure.
We need a QB2.
But no, he's not. That's not. He's a guy who's going to transfer out to a starting job. He's not
We'll
gonna
see what teams
transfer
come
to a
knocking on
backup job.
Taven. Maybe he comes back. You never know. Guys come back from the portal all the time. So Taven would be another option at the backup spot. Have him compete with Mendoza. Learn. He already knows the system. It'd be a great fit. And then next on my list, I have running back, and I have a name written down. This is I only have names written down for quarterback and running back. I wrote down.
You want another running back?
I wrote down Roman Hemby, who committed to Indiana today. So I can.
I was about to say
Christmas came early for me.
Christmas did come early. This dude's fucking awesome.
Basically, a guy that came in as a true freshman at Maryland and got really good production right away. And he's been there for 3 years now. He had a great game against Maryland. He's kind of slowed down. You could blame that on Maryland. Honestly, put him in a good system. Like, we saw he was eating when they had Talia Tagovailoa and they could throw the ball. They couldn't really do that this year with Billy Edwards. You know, didn't have as good of a season as he normally does. This is a great addition. Running back one on day one. Him, Black, Beebe. Going to be a great running back room moving forward. Got Martin and Cuono in the wings as well. Two of those 38 freshmen that, you know, we keep bringing up. Tons of depth in that room. Running back room is set right now. Pending whatever's going on with Beebe, but it sounds like he recommitted since we last recorded. Next
Yeah, I got
on the list.
not much to add there.
Next on the list, slot receiver. I've mentioned this before. Starting slot. We have the 7 scholarship receivers right now. We need one more, and it's a starting slot. We can talk about moving Surratt to Coop to around and filling in that, you know, slot role. Those two are outside guys. They're outside guys. We need a true slot. Casey Concepcion, maybe we put a last minute push on him now that we're, you know, in the running now, full go. In terms of recruiting, we are in a dead period starting today, so it's kind of late to the ball game here. But maybe we cheat. Maybe we talk to him anyways. Maybe we talk about Mike.
Listen,
honestly, like, I wouldn't mind bringing in a guy from Mendoza that he's familiar with. Bring in a Mikey Matthews to start at that slot. He's a young kid. He's a true sophomore this year. He would have 2 more years of eligibility with the program. Bring him in as the starting slot. Mix in Kendrick Bond. Get Chandler some tick. See if Becker can maybe play the slot. He seems a little tall for it, but he's more of an outside guy. A lot to work with. Maybe Chandler goes in the slot. Who knows? But I would like to see another vet come in at the receiver spot, take over that role, that we had 2 slot guys leave. Price and Key Williams are leaving. So, got a lot of production to fill between those 2. Mikey Matthews also returned punts, and punt returner is a need. So, Mikey Matthews could be the answer here.
A package deal, 2 for 1.
I also, and to round out the offensive needs list, we need a right tackle and a center. Interior O-lineman. We can move maybe Bray Lynch to center, but I think it'd be great if we could just plug in Lynch and Evans at the guard, bring back Carter Smith at left tackle, and then we could bring in a center and a right tackle. Obviously, the best that we can find, obviously, if it's NFL talent. For some of these, I wrote NFL talent. Like, obviously, if we can find an NFL talent for the goals, we should probably get it. Obviously. Like, yeah, if we want to beat Notre Dame, we need more NFL talent. Like, that's just clear as day.
What do we need? lists as good football players. Like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I
Go
need,
find. Yeah, let's go get the good
and
ones.
we need a starting right tackle and a starting center to replace Wedig and Kadick. And then from there, if we get those guys, we have a true three deep if scholarship O lineman. And that's what you look for in terms of roster building. You look for 15 scholarship O line, so then you have in your three deep all scholarship O linemen. That's what you want. So you have the depth, you have guys developing, you have true freshmen at the threes, you got true sophomores up at the twos, and then you got your starters are your starters, your best players. That's what you look for, and a lot of I've seen UCLA teams that neglected the O line, and that was clearly our biggest point of weakness in that Notre Dame game, and that's what drives programs into the ground is not taking care of the O line development. I know Cignetti knows that he's not an idiot, best roster builder in college football. Is a claim I'm making yet to be seen. We'll see it over a year as things progress, but yeah, right tackle, center, key needs for us. Key.
100% agree. And it's funny. I've been trying to figure out like who those targets could possibly be because there hasn't been a ton of smoke specifically on the offensive line. There's been a lot of smoke on the defensive line for the Hoosiers, but there hasn't been a ton of smoke on the offensive line. And so it's going to be interesting to see. We might be looking at maybe getting a couple guys that are going to transfer out of these playoff teams. Maybe it's more so you look at that kind of what they did with Wedig where they brought him in the spring, and you look at those like the guys who kind of figure out they're getting phased out and they can come work with Bosted because he's unbelievable at figuring out the right roles for these guys. But yeah, it's not like there's a ton out there in terms of
what we can do at those spots, and I totally understand. A lot of those guys might still be playing football right now. The portal's a long game. We got a lot of players that are still going to enter the portal before spring. There'll be something. It'll be interesting to see who we bring in at those spots. But if we're not bringing in any O linemen, I'll be a little worried. Definitely need a right tackle.
No, we're gonna bring people in. I just don't know who they're gonna be yet.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have 3 spots on my defensive wish list. A Kamara replacement. It's three of them are D line. I think the linebacker room is pretty set right now. Obviously, if you can bring in a stud linebacker to go to pair with Fisher without having to start Jones and Hardy, I'm all for it. But I don't think that's the biggest need right now. I think Jones and Hardy are good enough to fill in starting next year. So we need a Linnell Carr replacement, an upgrade from Linnell Carr. I have a Kamara replacement listed here. That could be Mikhail Kamara. That could be. It could be Mikhail Kamara. So he can make Christmas come early by committing that he's coming back next year. And then I know we brought in Ratcliffe and Wheeler, and we already have Tucker and Burris, but can't have too many interior D linemen. Can't. Bring in another top nose, like a CJ West replacement. Like CJ West was our best player on the field against Notre Dame, and we need to find a guy to replace that because I love what we did with Burris and Wheeler and Tucker, and I haven't seen too much on Ratcliffe, honestly. I probably need to break down his film a little more, but I know he's not a nose. So I'm curious to see what we do at the nose spot because it could end up being we just go Wheeler Burris right now as the starters.
Well, a guy whose name, because again, there hasn't been a ton of smoke outside of like Hemby popped up a little bit last week. Mendoza obviously is the big one. And then obviously the guys who have already committed. But Jared Dawson, he's in the portal from Louisville. That's a guy whose name has quietly been connected to the Hoosiers. 6'2", 305 pounds. Big dude. So that could be an interior defensive line target. But again, there hasn't been... It's not like there are these like giant smoke signals like there are with Mendoza where it's like crystal ball has got him to Indiana and all that. It's like these are all kind of rumors. So they're... And like you said, like we just hit the dead period and we don't pick back up until January 6th. So fifth. Okay. So it's not going to be a quiet couple weeks because what? Players can reach out to teams, right?
Yeah, players can reach out to teams. Teams can't reach out to players.
And we know that rule is being broken left and right.
Obviously. It's one of the most common infractions in college sports would be the initiating contact with a player during a dead period is the most common one out there. Happens all the time, actually. It's kind of honestly like you get a slap on the wrist, and it could be worth it.
Who else is on your portal wish list?
Well,
bro?
it's D-line, the Kamara replacing nose. Jared Dawson would fill in at the nose. A top edge rusher to pair on the other side of Kamara. I love Linnell Carr. I think he did a lot of good things. If we could have another Kamara on the other side as the stud. We have Ndukwe and Collins that are on the come up.
And Landino is going to be a factor next year.
He's not going to play that stud spot, though.
He's not going to play stud, but he's going to factor into the defensive line for sure.
He's going to back up Kamara, and he's going to come in. They're going to put him at different spots, and they're going to. I can already see like with what they have now, they could bring in a third down pass rush of Kamara, Landino, Burris, and Wheeler, and that would be pretty damn good. In terms of everyday stud, right now it's Turvey and Ndukwe and Collins kind of fighting for a starting spot. I don't know, man. I love those guys. We might need more. So it mostly comes down to the D-line. And then pressing needs...
I don't think it's disrespectful to say, you like Turvey, but he was a walk-on who we're expecting to get a scholarship this offseason. But he was still a walk-on. Like, if you can get a guy who was...
4-star.
Just further developed, more physically gifted, these are the realities of sport. There are just levels to athletes and levels to... And that doesn't mean you're going to be more effective or less effective, but we're not explaining anything to any...
With our staff, we get those talented guys in, they will get the job done. I promise you. Just bring in the right guys. I trust whoever they bring in. I know they can evaluate talent. Will they be good enough to get us into playoff contention? Yes. Will they be good enough to win us the national title? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, and then my last one is I wrote down NFL Rover. We need the Terry Jones replacement. We're already pretty set at all the DB spots. Brought in Knighton as another corner. We already brought all of our top 4 corners back for next year on top of 6 freshmen that are on the roster next year. So corner, safety, we're looking good. We could use another safety to play that Rover spot because I really don't see anyone on the roster that can play Rover besides Farrell. And then even then we'd have to bump Bonds into starting safety. And then we'd have Reese and Boyd backing them up. I guess that's something they can do. They can move Farrell back to Rover in theory, but it would be nice to have one more DB would be great.
He's just a guy with experience because it's not against the talent of any of this freshmen. Actually, I'm really excited about this 2025 freshman class coming in and the 2024 freshmen, but the one thing they don't have is experience. And so to get a guy in there with experience, especially a guy who's played at a high level, would obviously make this defense a lot better.
Yeah, we are going to be a lot younger next year. So as many transfers that we can fit on the roster would be ideal. We're going to be, to break it down, 70-ish scholarship guys right now. More than half are freshmen. 38 freshmen on this. Of the 85 scholarship spots will be freshmen next year. Or at least guys that came in the last 2 years. We're going to be young, so as much talent and depth and experience that we can bring in is only going to set us up for success in 2025.
100%. And obviously guys are still entering the portal like we alluded to earlier. There is a rule that states, I think, any team playing after December 28th, so that would include every team that advanced past the first round of the playoff. Those teams, once their season ends, those kids have a 5-day window to hit the portal. So the madness isn't done by any means. In fact, actually, a lot more talented guys are probably going to hit the portal. We haven't been following these teams nearly as close, obviously, as we're following Indiana, so who knows who's upset, who's not getting the ball, God knows what problems people are running into with the teams and the era of college football we live in. Maybe somebody feels like they can get more money somewhere else, and guess what? Indiana's got the bag.
Yeah, if I wanted to spend money on certain spots, it'd be the D line. Spend money there. I think corner we can make do with what we got, and then O line D line is where we should be spending our money this year, and quarterback. Obviously, every year should be spent on quarterback. Quarterback, O line, D line, everything else can kind of work itself out in terms of what we do in our development and our scheme. Yeah, that's where I'd want the money to be spent. Would be the trenches, and the quarterback. It seems too obvious. Seems like I'm speaking to first graders here about how to build rosters, but that's just the reality. That's where we need it, and it showed against Notre Dame. I'm just trying to figure out how to beat Notre Dame. That's what I'm on. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, get bigger, get faster, get stronger, and get smarter. And they will after another year in the Cignetti system. Obviously, the guys who come back are just going to be that much better. And then the people they inject into the new scheme, like Jose Wheeler, who's the defensive tackle they brought in from Western Kentucky, I'll continue to sing his praises. Like, that dude is a really, really good football player. And I'm really excited to see him unleashed in Brian Haynes' defense. That's the thing, too, is like the defensive staff, especially with the way they look at and utilize defensive linemen, it is if you're a guy who just wants to get after the quarterback and wreak havoc, like this, that would be the number one destination, because you have the opportunity, you have the stage, and you have you're going to have the chance to go make plays.
Yeah, we have a chance to be a lot better than we were next year. We have a big chance. Just depends on what we do in the portal. It all comes down to it. And we have a tougher schedule next year. So, we might not have the same record as we did, but we'll be a better team next year. It seems very, very likely at this point, unless we shit the bed in the portal.
Agreed. 100% agree. Yep. So preliminary discussions to be back on Friday to discuss the next round matchups. We got Texas and Arizona State. We got Penn State and Boise State. Notre Dame takes on Georgia. And we got our SoCal Hot Sauce game of the week, Oregon versus Ohio State in Pasadena in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I finally got all my Christmas shopping done thanks to SoCalHotSauce.com. Got a lot of people 4-packs. I'm going to be wrapping them tonight, giving them over. Yeah, get your 4-pack, SoCalHotSauce.com. Use promo code SIGSINSIDE, 10% off any order. I always recommend the 4-pack and above. You can get cases as well if you want to go crazy. I think there's like 30 in them. But they have, basically you get free shipping if you buy more than 4 bottles. So that's 10%. And then you get 10% off with the promo code SIGSINSIDE. That's basically a $20 purchase for 4 bottles. It's not bad. Not bad at all. And it's really good. The hot avocado is a staple in my household now. I think I've said it multiple times. It's the reason why I'm getting it for everyone for Christmas. It's a really good hot sauce. And yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone.
SoCalHotSauce.com, promo code SIGSINSIDE.
2 words.
10% off all orders. Sigs Inside Indiana Football Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at SigsInsidePod. You can follow Brad at Bradley_Loomis8. You can follow me at Alec Keyser. Check out KeySportsNetwork.com. I wrote a couple articles this past weekend, one leading into the game that was pretty brash, one coming out of the game, just saying, this isn't over. We'll be back. But yeah, more things are coming to KeySportsNetwork.com. We're going to discuss the off-season plans for Sigs Inside and kind of what we're going to do with the portal and breaking news and stuff like that. But yeah, this isn't the end for Indiana football. This is just the beginning. And that's the exciting part. Check out Friends and Collaborators Instrumental Volume 1 on streaming platforms now. Shout out to the boys, Wave, NxckSkrxll, Cygnar. Check those guys out on Instagram. It's the intro song, 1621. The outro song is The Sweet Sound of Butter Symphony.
Yeah, if I could do one thing over, you teed me up with that second ad read at the end. I should have incorporated it when I was getting real hot about Kurt Street and everything going on, and then been like, oh, I'm hot right now. Speaking of hot, and then SoCalHotSauce.com. Boom. I think that would have been a lot. If I had changed anything from this banger of an episode, that's what I would change.
It's the little things. We just keep getting better every day.
We'll watch film and get better, and it's all about the process. Every play is play by play, 6 seconds of play. Every play is a life and history of its own. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you to all the seniors. Thank you for all those who chose and bought in and believed and put the blood, sweat, and tears and dedication into this Indiana football season. And Hoosier fans, like, doesn't matter what anybody else says. Nobody can take this from us.
Yes, thank you.
It's only
Thank
the
you,
beginning.
seniors, and it's only the beginning. Thank you for laying the groundwork, and the best is yet to come. Good luck in the NFL.